Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly excited to share today's journey with you because we are diving into Sri Bhagavat's fascinating book, Absolute Reality. Now, if you have ever felt like you're just constantly striving for some state of spiritual perfection, or maybe exhausting yourself trying to maintain endless positivity, well, this explainer might just give you a complete paradigm shift. We're going to deconstruct the very nature of enlightenment together, and trust me, it is absolutely fascinating. So let's jump right in.
So I want to start by asking you something. What if chasing happiness is exactly what's making you miserable? I know, it sounds totally counterintuitive, right? It's our inborn nature to go after enjoyment, to seek pleasure, and to avoid pain literally at all costs. But as we're going to see today, this deeply ingrained biological drive for safety and pleasure can actually become the very cage that traps us, especially when we carry it over into our spiritual lives.
All right, Section 1, Chasing the Spiritual Bliss.
Let's talk about a central concept here, an anthem. In spiritual circles, this is basically translated as an infinite blissful state. Our minds are wired to seek this blissful security above absolutely everything else. People usually get into spirituality because they want relief from their sorrows, right? They expect to be handed this permanent ticket to an anthem. We treat spiritual bliss as the ultimate goal, like it's the absolute highest peak of human existence. But there's a hidden mechanism behind why we crave it so intensely.
The mechanics behind this are actually wild. Think about it. When we experience pleasure, we unconsciously just accept the experience. We merge with it completely effortlessly. We kind of go into this unconscious, self-forgetful state where there is zero struggle. Pain, on the other hand, pain forces us into a state of highly conscious, exhausting struggle. We hate it, we reject it, and we fight it tooth and nail. So naturally, we chase that blissful state to escape the exhausting effort of being hyper-self-conscious while in pain. But here is the shocking truth, derived straight from the source material. Even the most divine spiritual experiences, those unbelievable moments of Anantham, are ultimately just chemical reactions in your bodily nervous system. I mean, it might feel completely otherworldly, but you can only feel it because of your physical body. And just like eating way too many sweets is eventually going to destroy your physical health, trying to artificially prolong spiritual bliss is impossible. No temporary bodily reaction can last forever.
The renowned Sant Ramana Maharshi actually summarized this perfectly, and he offered some wonderfully subversive advice. He warned seekers not to get stuck in those blissful experiences. Instead, he said, we have to ask ourselves, who is having all these experiences? We literally have to transcend the bliss itself by questioning the very nature of the person who is experiencing it.
Which brings us to Section 2, Experiencer versus the Experienced.
Let's really unpack this. When we look at our own minds, we basically falsely split our reality right down the middle. On one side, we have the experiencer, this feeling of a permanent I that sits inside our heads. And on the other side, we have the experienced, the temporary thoughts, the fears, the joys, the physical sensations that are constantly bombarding us. We walk around acting as if this permanent I is constantly trying to manage and control all these passing experiences.
But here is the kicker. That duality is a total illusion. The experiencer and the experienced are actually just two sides of a single passing thought. Think of a dream. When you feel fear in a dream, the I feeling the fear and the fear itself are both entirely created by the exact same fleeting thought. They pop up together and they disappear together. There is no permanent I separate from the experience, just standing there trying to manage the whole shebang.
Section 3, The Illusion of Control. To really grasp this illusion of control, there's this great and honestly pretty hilarious parable. So there was this king who desperately wanted to stay young, and a physician gives him a special medicine. But there was one very strange condition. He could not think of a monkey while taking it. Well, obviously, the second he touched the medicine, boom, monkey thought. Desperate, a minister tells the king, hey, just forcefully think of an elephant instead so there's no room for the monkey. So the king tries it, he touches the medicine, pictures an elephant, and instantly the elephant morphs into a giant monkey. It's such a perfect illustration of the absolute absurdity of trying to forcefully control our own thoughts.
So finally, a wise saint intervenes. He looks at the king and asks, did you think of the monkey, or did the thought come to you without your willful thinking? The king admits, yeah, it came totally automatically. And the saint's response is just brilliant. He basically says, why take responsibility for something you didn't consciously do? The king suddenly realizes he isn't responsible for thoughts that arrive entirely on their own, and just like that, he's free to just take the medicine.
So what is the crucial takeaway for us here?
It's that the nature of our thoughts is that they arrive without permission. If we struggle against an unwanted thought, we actually give it life. The source uses this beautiful analogy. It's like treating thoughts like notes played on a piano. If you press a key, the music comes out, and then it just naturally fades in a fraction of a second. But if you try to fight the note by pressing the key again, you just renew the sound. Doing nothing at all lets them fade instantly.
Section 4. The unconscious healthy mind.
Let's look at a concept called Sahaja Samadhi. Now, we often hear the word samadhi and immediately imagine some mystical, floating in the clouds trance. But the text defines Sahaja Samadhi as a practical trance. It's simply a natural, everyday state of mind that is completely free from self-contradiction or struggle. It isn't some magical disappearance of reality. It's literally just the quiet state of your mind when it finally stops fighting itself.
To put this into perspective, think about a physically healthy body. Take your leg, for example. When it's healthy, it functions completely silently. It requires zero focus. You aren't constantly aware of your leg while you're just walking down the street, right? You only become hyper-aware of your body, intensely conscious of it, when you have a painful wound. The healthy body is, in a very real way, consciously unconscious.
Well, a healthy mind functions exactly the same way. It is simply one that operates without the loud, painful struggle of self-contradiction. When you don't struggle to constantly regulate your psychological experiences, when you stop fighting those giant monkey thoughts, your mind just functions silently. It heals itself unconsciously.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, Discovering Your Absolute Reality.
There's this fantastic story in the text about an aspirant looking for an all-powerful saint. A beggar on the street tells him, "Hey, go to this specific rock in the Himalayas and worship it for 3 years." So the guy does it. 3 years later, the rock dramatically splits open and out steps the exact same beggar from the street. The beggar explains, "You wouldn't have accepted a beggar as an all-powerful saint, so I had to use this theatrical way to meet you." We foolishly expect the absolute truth to be this immense theatrical event. But as the text reveals, it's really just our ordinary, unstruggling reality.
Think of it like the difference between taking a grand tour and just returning home. Seeking thrilling, temporary spiritual highs and blissful experiences is exactly like going on a giant vacation. It's fun, it's exciting, but man, it's exhausting, and you can't stay there forever. True liberation, true enlightenment, is simply the undeniable, deep comfort and relief of finally returning home. It is just stepping back into your natural state.
This natural state is known as Sat, or beingness. Sat is the ultimate reality. The text compares it to the natural silence of a healthy tongue. Think about it. When a tongue is eating, it experiences all sorts of exciting tastes. But when it isn't eating, it doesn't just suddenly cease to exist. It sits there in a state of tasteless silence. It's a sensitivity that is just resting in its own beingness. That is Sat. Completely, 100% free of the struggle to regulate experience.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a really provocative question to chew on. If true liberation is simply arriving at your natural, uncontradicted state of being, a state that is already right here, right now, the moment you stop fighting your own thoughts, who exactly is struggling to get there right now? Just let that sit with you for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you found this breakdown as fascinating and completely liberating as I did.